Are you sitting comfortably? Good. We should begin. No, wait, that's the other one with the mothers and the bridge babies and the cosmic horrors. Today, I want to talk about the Hideo Kojima game from this decade. Well, this past decade, rather. We're still in the decade of he made the game and it was a thing. But today I want to talk about Metal Gear Solid V The Phantom Pain, and anyone that says 5 can get right in the bin. Oh wait, I don't have my notes, hold on. No, not that one, not that one, or that one. No, 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 no. Ah, there it is. Yes, I have quite a few notes for this one because I have tried to do this specific video several million times, and I have done it for hours. Literal hours of recording, not just the video multiple times, I mean the actual video in one go. I mean actually trying to sit down and comprehensively explain exactly why I just can't talk about Metal Gear Solid V The Phantom Pain. It is a mess. A cosmic horror of mess and just awful writing. I don't want to call it awful because it's not bad. Okay, the story is like a child using their own fecal matter to draw that thing on the Sistine Chapel ceiling. Yeah, that thing. It's that not bad, but mental. It is beyond explanation. Let me quickly run down the Metal Gear Solid series in the most simplified way. In the 1960s, something, Russia, America, lovely, ooh, look, America. And then big metal dinosaurs, nuclear weapons, communism. That is Metal Gear Solid in a nutshell. It is fantasizing America against Russia, and it's mental. Big metal dinosaurs with nuclear weapons. There's a reason video games are not seen as this fantastic piece of brilliance next to, I don't know, Citizen Kane and so on. Because we have metal dinosaurs with nuclear weapons. It is mental. It is fifth rock from the sun. Is it third or fifth? I don't remember. Anyway, it's stupid. But stupid is great. I love stupid things. I mean, look at my cat. Without going into extraneous detail, the general story of V is Big Boss, you know, the villain of the piece, is the protagonist. Ignore it, it's so confusing when you have games that are the third and they're set in the 60s, but the second game is set in 2001, but before, you know, that whole thing where America cries all the bloody time. And then you have the fourth game, which is set in the future from its release, which was 2008, but its future is, I think, 2012. And then you have the first game, which is, I can't even remember. This one's set in the 80s, which is the fifth game, but it's really the 12th game because there's Peace Walker and there's this and there's that. And the Metal Gear Solid series is just mental in every respect. But the general story is Big Boss, the villain of the entire thing, or the one that turns into a villain but is the big... Is it matriarch or patriarch? I can't remember which one is which, but one is the man and one is the woman, and I don't really care which one is which, but he's the one with the gentleman's vegetable. He is the big scary, ooh look, evil, but we don't ever really see him being evil. And this is the point where he's meant to turn evil, but he doesn't, because, spoiler alert, Hideo Kojima likes his characters a bit too much. Nonetheless, you play as this big boss man that's... and it's fine. It's fine. That's cool. Then you face off with the villain of this piece, or villains of this piece, which is a man with a skull for a face, called, and I'm not joking, Skullface, a man who's on fire, who is called the Man on Fire, and a child that floats who died in a plane crash. No, wait, was it a helicopter crash, or... I can't remember that first tape. I've played the game so many times. Anyway, you have this child that's floaty and wears a gas mask and is not the empty child from Doctor Who. And he's called Psycho Mantis. Yeah. Naming protocol goes a bit mad with this one. Anyway, something something villain, something something metal dinosaur, something something... Wait, metal dinosaur? Yes. It's all based around, ooh look, Russia, America, Afghanistan, South Africa. Wait, where is it in South Africa? Oh, I can't remember. It's all just flat and boring, and really Afghanistan's the interesting bit because it's corridors, and I'll get to the map in a minute, but generally the idea is villains, cartoon villains, hero, cartoon hero, have fun. And then in the middle you have this woman that attacks you at the very beginning of the game. Now, throughout practically all the game, she's, shall we say, silent. Now, when people are silent, they tend to be a little low in volume, almost quiet. Oh yeah, her name is Quiet. Yes, naming protocol is mental. Keep that in mind. So you have Quiet in the middle, and what's her story? She loves a man. I did say that it was a bit simple with the whole cartoon villains, cartoon hero, and then cartoon love interest, who isn't really cared about by Big Boss because, well, it's Big Boss. He doesn't care. But also there's the bit that I'm not telling you because those who do know, and they're going, yeah, but, Jesus. And those that don't are going, wait, but why, what? We've established mental, simple, and America versus Russia. Simple enough. Let's have a popcorn flick. Let's love it. That's fine. And generally, I don't want to say generally, the story's fine. It's a mess in every respect, and I'll repeat that until I'm blue in the face, but it works because it's Hideo Kojima and it's mental. But at the same time, anyone else attempts this same literal statue of David made out of their own excrement. They'd be called so many things by the internet because they don't have this Hideo Kojima bit in their head. They don't have this mad, I'm doing something fun in their head. They're trying to be artistic, and the one thing that Hideo Kojima is not is, well, artistic. He's basically, he's eating sugar and writing. Yes, that's what I do, but I don't sniff my own farts. Did you just say that one of the most well-respected game developers ever sniffs his own farts? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. So that's the story covered. Let's talk about the open world gameplay. Yes. See, that's the falter of the story in some way. The game previously has been this almost linear thing. Most of the time it would be fixed cameras early on, then it shifted to a rather third-person camera that worked for that game, and it still had that linear feel of... Okay, Metal Gear Solid 2 is Die Hard, and this is... Name any child's movie that's a bit crap. What was the name of that boss thing with the baby and the stupid plot that makes no sense but made all the money in the world? Boss Baby, yes. Seems like they've taken the Hideo Kojima route of naming things. Nonetheless, the open world gameplay of Metal Gear Solid V: The Phantom Pain is possibly the issue, one of the main issues, yes, of the actual game and the story. Yes, every other game has gone open world and done all of this, all of that, and ooh, lovely things. But Metal Gear Solid, for the most part, sticks to this solid thing of linear and a strong story. It's mental, but it's strong, and it's good in a mad way. This takes the open world approach, which means you can go anywhere, do anything, blah-de-da-do. And it's not what the game really needs. It's not what the story needs. The story needs something linear and needs, well, a competent editor to come in and go, look, if you take this out and you put that in and you do this and you do that, and it might just make a bit more sense and it might be worth it, and it makes the game actually worth playing for the story and not just because you want to fling a man into space with a balloon because you don't understand the whole Fulton extraction system, which was used in, what was it, Thunderball? I can't remember. I've not really seen any of the James Bond films, but nonetheless, that's a thing that you've seen, and you want to make it a Saturday morning cartoon because you're a madman who just does stupid things, stupid mental fun things, and I love it. Nevertheless, the gameplay does that thing. It plays with the open world. It allows you to go out and explore absolutely nothing. That's the thing about the gameplay. Yes, you can explore the wilds of Africa and sing Toto, or you can explore Afghanistan and go through corridors and the interesting bit of the actual maps happens to be that. It's really fun going through the corridors and just hoping that you don't have that engine come up from behind you and you have to turn around with the... That's a horrible sound effect, but nonetheless, you have the thing, you have the bit that goes, oh look, someone's spotted you, turn around. Previously, the games kind of did something a bit more... Okay, this one, you have a couple seconds to recover from being spotted. Previous games, well, they would kill you instantly, which is arguably better, but also worse. Remember when you could be killed in a game and you didn't hate it? I do, but I'm older than most of you, probably. But we continue on the traversal of Afghanistan and South Africa, or is it South Africa? I can't remember. I know it's Africa, and I know that because they speak Afrikaans and a bit of, I think it's just general Dutch, a bit of French. There's some Russian somewhere, I think. There's a lot of gameplay that focuses on languages, and we'll get to that in another bit about the story, but I'm saving that for the back end when you've heard the spoiler alert go away, come back when you want to hear about that and you want to hear my opinions on that. But gameplay wise, it's fine. It is nothing special, it is fine. And I think that's the problem that Hideo Kojima has with open world. He wants to do the linear story, but also wants to do the non-linear gameplay, which doesn't really connect. Ask Far Cry 4. Far Cry 4 loves doing a boring linear plot that, well, not linear, it has the multiple paths and you can choose this one and do this one and you can have your flavor ice cream and it's all boring. But generally, Far Cry 4 sticks to this idea the world is your oyster and the story is in a whole other bit of the universe. And that's where Metal Gear Solid V The Phantom Pain comes in. It is doing a story that's in this mad open world that you can go anywhere, do anything, but the story in general should be on its own. It should have this solid thing, something that you actually want to participate in, not just sometimes go over to and touch. And that's the thing about the gameplay. For the most part, to do the missions, to do the story, you have to pull yourself out of the gameplay and put yourself into the story, almost like a phone operator taking out the jack and putting it into another slot. And because that's a novel concept to you young people, back in the day when, before we had iPhones, we had things called phone operators. They took things out of one slot and put it in another, and that would connect your call. Now that's done magically. Believe me, it's magic. It's wonderful. If you want the general opinion and the general idea that I have for Metal Gear Solid V The Phantom Pain, it is a very solid game that is flawed in many different ways, but it is interesting. It is an interesting moment in gaming because there's so much politics behind it in development, but it's also reflected in the gameplay by so many decisions that are made. That said, I'm now going to talk about the story and do a bit of a spoiler thing. So, if you want to play Metal Gear Solid V The Phantom Pain, I suggest doing it. I picked the game up again, mark that as the second time, for about $4. Yes, it was secondhand. Yes, I still like it. Yes, it is on another console, and I could have just played that, but I like the game. I think it's fun. I think it's fun to pick up and play sometimes, but it is a mad game that you have to like sometimes and sometimes not like. You have to understand that the game isn't going to be perfect, and it is going to be quite long because Hideo Kojima doesn't understand brevity. This cast of 3 angry men is so annoying. Big Boss, the other one, and the other one are just awful at telling you anything. Mostly because of Hideo's generally crap writing. It's crap, but it's entertaining. And that's what I think is fun about it. But with 3 men who are angry and shouting at each other, who sound roughly the same when shouting, it does become a bit of a mess. It does become horrible to listen to because you don't know who anyone is. You don't know which one's Big Boss, which one's Ocelot, and the other one. In about 2 minutes I'll remember his name, but quite frankly, they're all generally crap. Not to mention the fact that we have Big Boss, played by... is it Kiefer or Keither? Jack Bauer plays Big Boss, but Big Boss who's silent and practically says huh and what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. No, he doesn't actually have character. Putting aside the fact that I've just made a reference to that song, generally Big Boss doesn't say what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. He will stand there and watch someone be tortured. This is someone who's at this point meant to be the hero, the one that stands up for everyone, the savior, the something something America, but he just stands there.
Caution, rain approaching.
Why? He's so nothing. There's nothing behind him. There's nothing for him to do in each scene. He's there to react, and his reactions are mild at best. They don't have character. They don't bleed a character. They don't scream, this is Big Boss, this is a character defining moment, this is someone showing heroics or showing villainous traits. It is a man standing in a corner watching someone be waterboarded practically until they're dead. I like Metal Gear Solid V, but when Ocelot and the other one are shouting over torture, and the one that's meant to be the villain, or the one that does the double turns all the bloody time, is being the good guy, and the one that's meant to be the hero, happy, lovely, yay, woo, is angry and going, no, we should torture's good, yes, torture. No, it's not, but sure, you do your mad thing, and you Is he the one with the cane or the eye patch or what? I can't remember. They're all so dull and boring as characters. But they're arguing, and yet Big Boss, the boss, he's literally referred to by those two as the boss, and Big Boss just stands there in the corner and just watches them fight. Why? Just get up and shout, "Hoi!" Smack him. Get in about it. Knock him about. No, it's fine. Torture. Yeah. The game's very pro-torture. And it's shown in every audio log and scene with the three of them that's, oh yeah, let's torture a man who can't walk. Let's break his leg. Let's do this. Let's take the half-naked woman who's called Quiet and ask her to talk. And when she doesn't, let's waterboard her. Why? Good torture, good. Yes. No, it's not. This is why I say it's mental. It is so hard to explain with proper critique. You just go into a mad frenzy of talking about torture and metal dinosaurs that fire nuclear weapons with that really good boss battle that's it's one boss battle, but that's it. There's one boss battle in the entire game, and that's fun. Yay, good. But the rest are a bit crap. For example, the Man on Fire boss battle, for lack of a better term, you get a water pistol just before it. What does that water pistol do? Absolutely diddly. It doesn't work against the Man on Fire, even though it's called the water pistol. No, you have to knock over a water tower onto him. How? Well, you get rockets and you just wait for that really nice moment. Yes, it's quite annoying, but nonetheless. The three angry men are annoying, but the reason they're annoying, and so goddamn annoying, is the fact that you don't always get to see them. You have to sit there and listen to them. You might be thinking, wait, why do you listen to them? Well, that is if you've not played the game and just listening to a madman talk about the bloody game. You have those moments where you realise that you're doing something futile. No, me neither. Yes, the audio logs. You pick up tapes and you collect tapes and you do this and you do that, and there's some very nice music, and I spoke to the woman in the shop when I bought the game and we agreed, yes, very nice 80s music. But a lot of the game features listening to a bunch of tapes. Almost podcast-length tapes. Some of them are 3 minutes long, and that's fine when you're, dancing about on your oil rig. But you do have the moments where you're playing a stealth action game and you're having to listen to tapes. Hold on, stealth action, listen to tapes. Now tell me, what is the one thing you really want in stealth? To listen to things. What's the one thing you can't do when you're listening to some tapes? Listen to things. You can't listen for footsteps, you can't listen for the of an engine and the far off distance with the binoculars that can hear for miles, and that's a whole mess of it's sci-fi. That's fine. Just like how I go, it's sci-fi, it's fine with the metal dinosaurs that fire nuclear weapons, and that's quite fun. And the audio tapes are a mess. a massive mess that just... They continue the idea that, yeah, this is fine, this is a nice audio drama, but, and this is the thing about a game, most games don't really fit that audio drama thing, especially, and I'll repeat it and underline it and circle it and put 12 exclamation marks circled themselves and underlined. It is a stealth action game. Yes, you sometimes bombard a piece of land with a helicopter and bombing things. Yeah, that's fine. But a majority of the time, and I'm not joking, you're trying desperately to be quiet. Why would you ever listen to some tapes when you're trying to be some quiet bit of bush off in the distance that coughs and waits for a man to go in the bathroom, and then you boop him and leave him in the bathroom, or you dress up in the cardboard box with the pretty lady and then you burst out and go, woo! Forget that. Let's get to the meat of this story. The general idea is a parasite has been released into the population and it is causing a large disruption to things. This is hard to talk about in the middle of a pandemic as people have things in their lungs, but sure, let's talk about a vocal cord parasite that attacks the lungs and stuff. The man without a face, known as Skullface, has released a vocal cord parasite that attacks, the vocal cords. It goes into the lungs and attacks the vocal cords when the vocal cords rumble, and that is how we're meant to assume this vocal cord parasite works, but it's really, really, really complicated and something Hideo Kojima could not explain, even if he had all of time to explain it. He could have every minute of the universe. He could sit there for days, months, years, millennia, and never properly explain this vocal cord parasite. The idea is the rumbling in your vocal cords causes a bit of a reaction with these parasites, causing them to breed and spread through the body, creating what Skullface uses as his army, along with the big metal dinosaur that he uses at the beginning, and I'll talk about the direction in a minute because that's possibly the best bit. You have this really weird concept of the vocal cord parasite attacking the vocal cords, and it's quite interesting. It's something that should be explored, but Hideo Kojima can't explore that because he's going, metal dinosaurs and nuclear weapons, and it's all fine. That is the usual Metal Gear Solid thing. I mean, the series has vampires, roller skating vampires. Come on. Accepting metal dinosaurs with nuclear weapons, that's fine. That's easy enough. Vocal cord parasite, rumble in the vocal cords, causes them to breed. But there are strains of this virus that attack English-speaking people. Those with the knowledge of the Japanese language, or the Chinese language, or any language. There's all these different strains of the vocal cord parasite. now you're starting to question, wait, but it's the rumbling that causes them to breed, so what does it matter that there's an English bit
complete.
if you get the French version, but you're English and you say c'est la vie, does that constantly come back to haunt you as that rumbling of the French version has... wait, what? You have a very complex idea that could be explored and should be explored and never is, but it's tacked on with a post-it note that says, and this. Stories that tend to go, and then, and this, and so, and this, tend to be considered bad. Matt and Trey of South Park know this. There's a video online of them talking about how to do a story, how to do a good story. So, speaking to a class in New York, in a university, they are saying, this is how not to tell a story. Anytime you have your beat and then a beat is a problem. That is the biggest issue in storytelling for your story. It is just, it breaks flow. And then, not because, therefore, it's and then. It's not because something happened, it is, and then we're going to focus on this, and then we're going to focus on this. And Hideo Kojima does that well. Hideo Kojima does a good job of balancing and then with therefore because. Therefore being, therefore a metal dinosaur breaches the frog? Breaches the fog, rather, and does this beautiful opening showing the metal dinosaur with nuclear weapons. That's great, love it, fantastic. But, and then with the vocal cord parasite, just seems to be the straw that breaks the camel's back and also digs its grave and defecates in it. It is so... And then there is an English version, and then there is a French version, and then this is just hard to chew on, because all the established bits of story leading up to that point makes sense to some respect in a sci-fi way. Okay, the vocal cord parasite does seem a bit weird, it's sci-fi enough, but then you add the English strain and you get, but that doesn't work. Naturally your brain just thinks, but that doesn't work. In no way does that work, because it's just so stupid. It is beyond stupid. You can't have, ooh, it rumbles the vocal cords, therefore they breed. They breed, they spread, they go into the air and contaminate everyone. That makes logical sense in a sci-fi way. Yes, cool. We know how diseases spread, especially in the middle of a pandemic, which is weird to talk about right now, but this is the game that I've chosen to review this week. However, there is one language that the vocal cord parasite doesn't touch. And this is where it gets a bit more and then. Yes, some Native American, or whatever you want to call them this week, because apparently saying Indian is fine for some, but it's not for others, and quite frankly, I agree with the idea, let's just call people by whatever they decide, not just arbitrarily deciding that, hey, let's call these people Native Americans this week, because Indian does seem a bit awkward, because we've decided. Nonetheless, there's this language from the native people of America, shall we say, those before Whitey got involved, and that just makes it a bit more confusing to explain. I know instantly you're going, wait, but the vocal cord parasite rumbles, the vocal cords, they spread, and that makes sense, but then you add the English bit, and then that becomes a bit muddy, and sure, that's... if you ignore it, it's fine, but if you don't, it's a mess, and you just have nightmares because you wonder if Hideo Kojima will actually make something that makes sense for once, instead of going, oh, bridge babies and mothers and America and connections and, oh, Jesus Christ. Then you have the code talker. You have this moment of, but how does this language not trigger the problem of the parasite, but English does? But you can get the French strain when you're speaking English, and if you say un, deux, trois, what's it, un, deux, trois, quatre, Jesus, I've forgotten a bit of French because I'm just ranting at this point. You get the German strain and you go 9. What's that? You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and you have the German strain. You're gone. You're gone for life. That's it. There's so much in there that you just start wondering, how does this work? And it's a video game, for Christ's sakes. The entire vocal cord parasite bit hurts my brain so much. But ignore it. Yeah, that's fine if you don't know some languages, but when you do, and you know how to speak German, or French, or Italian, or Spanish, or Mandarin, or Japanese, or Afrikaans, or Xhosa, you start thinking, but that doesn't... Anytime you click, that's a major part of Xhosa, which is, a language in Africa. Where the game's set. You click once just to get someone's attention and, well, you're gonna die. You say 9 in English, you might die because you have the German strain. There's so much. There's so much, because it's established, yes, vibrations cause the parasites, the little things in you, to spread and multiply and go into the air. But the vibrations are only caused by the language that you inherit, or the language strain that you inherit. It's needlessly complex, and that's what I don't get about the story. It's fine up until that point where you start questioning all of reality because Hideo Kojima just doesn't understand basic disease things. Oh, hey, yeah, English. Well, English strain, but you've established this, and a script editor would notice that and tell you, no, just no, stop it, you absolute madman. I said this would be a long one. shall we talk about something I actually like in the game? And it will take less than 10 minutes to talk about. Direction. Hideo Kojima's actual bit in the game. Yes, he wrote bits of it, and other people came in to write sections of story and this, that, and the next thing. But his actual bit in the game is to direct, to be the number one focus driving point for the game. Yes, there'll be producers who say, hey, how about you do this? And you have writers who suggest this, and he goes, sure! I'm full of coffee! Yay! I'm actually full of coffee, and that's why I'm going on so long, but he is the point of which things come down to in or out. He's the one that's meant to say yes or no. That's why everything else is a stinky pile of poo next to his actual directing. The thing that he does so well. I said it before, but the games used to be a bit more linear and a bit more focused. And that's great, I love that. The one thing that this game lacks, in a majority of it, aside from cutscenes, is the linearity and Hideo Kojima's focus on detail. In film and television, there is this thing called the oneer. You have typically in Spielberg films where you have this long shot. Sometimes you'll have a good minute, sometimes you'll have 3 minutes, sometimes you'll have a whole film with 1917 and Birdman and I think Rope, or the three big ones of, the last 90 years. You have these films that typically have the camera, some action, and some very good blocking. Now that I love. That is a proper bit of cinema. That is a proper bit of what story is about for us as an audience watching something on a screen. That is great. I love that. I think that's a fantastic piece that is not often explored in gaming, though it was recently explored with 2018's God of War, where the camera doesn't really cut. It does, but in-game it does that 1917 trick of cutting, that Birdman way of cutting, that Rope way of cutting, where it will zoom in on something that's quite dark, or there'll be a dark cave, or because it's gaming, we can kind of stitch things together with jumping into gameplay and doing the cutscene. Now that's great, I love that, that's fantastic. And it's a brilliant piece of gaming to have the camera go from behind Kratos just enough that we feel comfortable but not too far away that it's actual God of War from, the PS2 era. And you have the camera move and swoop and do this really nice long shot round and above, and all of this fantastic acting in a single shot. But, and this is the thing, many games don't do that. Many games like to do the Bayhem way of cutting. This is where I get pretentious and talk about pretentious talking about Metal Gear Solid, Jesus Christ. Yes, this is where I get a bit pretentious about film and say the idea of doing that 10, 20, 30 years ago was impossible, because, well, 30 years ago games we're barely getting into 3D. 20 years ago, games could hardly sit on one disc. I mean, Final Fantasy VII came on 3 discs for the PlayStation 1. For the PlayStation 2, our entire save system was done with 8 megabyte cartridges. Remember those days? I love those days. But now we have games that are exceeding 100 gigabytes and doing all these fantastic bits of film and television tricks in them. It's great, and they're all grim and dark and depressing, and that's less great. But there's one thing that you can trust Hideo Kojima to do, and that is focus on the details of film and television and do those little tricks that Spielberg and Hitchcock did many years ago with The Oner. Hitchcock tried to do it with rope for the whole film, but it worked, but there was only 25 minutes of film and he had to zoom in on people's backs or zoom in on things and make it go dark for a moment so he could switch out the film. For Birdman, that was going into dark tunnels and emerging elsewhere to realise, oh yes, this is the thing. This is a different place, and that's where the cut is. With 1917, it's the same thing. It's moving and cutting and doing all of this, and it's very nice, it's very lovely. But for the most part, games don't do that well. Games don't do the Oner. Games try to be action-packed and sometimes a little too emotional and still do all the cuts, and it's fine. Metal Gear Solid V: The Phantom Pain does the Oner quite a lot, and it is fantastic. The introduction of Sahelanthropist is just fantastic. It is brilliant blocking, it is directing at its peak. These are fantastic moments of Hideo Kojima doing what he should be doing, which is directing the camera and keeping a focus on, let's make this something fun, silly, and interesting. The camera moves and swoops and does all of this through the scene. And there's a lot of fog, and there's Skullface and his friends, and then you have the in the distance, which is Sahelanthropist, who breaks through that fog and is fantastic. That scene is exactly why I think Metal Gear Solid V: The Phantom Pain is brilliant. I don't like the shower scene, shall we call it, the rain scene in some cases, with Quiet and her. For the most part, she's already stripped down, but you strip her down a bit more with that, and I just feel uncomfortable. The lass is already in her bikini. She doesn't need to take off her shoes or her things. Why does she have to roll around in the rain? That I don't like. That feels dirty, and not in a good way. I love Metal Gear Solid V: The Phantom Pain because it is mental. It is the metal dinosaur with nuclear weapons as you fight off the Russians in Afghanistan in the 80s while listening to David Bowie. That That's a fever dream I've had. Mostly because I've played it about several times. But does it make it any better by having the perverted moments, having all of this nonsense about Code Talker and the vocal cord parasite? No. Does that make it any worse?
Support helicopter.
No.
Requested.
It is a fine game. Not a 10 out of 10, not an 8 out of 10, just a fine game. A solid 7. Now, if you don't mind, my vocal cords feel like they're about to snap and break off, so I'm going to stop talking about a game that I'm genuinely angry about, but also really like, and tell you, if you can pick up the game for what I did, which was about $4, you're going to have a lot of fun. If you paid $60 and were expecting a blockbuster brilliance, ooh yes, you might be disappointed. And that, I think, is the problem.